Peace, family. We're going to talk about my process going through NACA and how I was able to purchase a 3-unit family, and that was able to allow me to change not only my trajectory and generational wealth for myself and my family, and allow me to get into real estate. So please like and subscribe to the content that you're seeing here. Any comments, if you purchased through NACA, if you purchased through NACA with me, please share that with the community. They would love to hear that and see that. You could also verify everything that I'm saying in my transactions on my LinkedIn account, as I was also an NMLS member as well. So we're going to talk strictly today just about my process and when I purchased my home. Back in 2016, I was 26 years old. So let's backtrack a little bit more and go all the way to 2015 of February. So during that time, it was really cold outside. I live in Buffalo, New York. It was snowing at the time. And I just kept hearing a lot of people in the community, specifically where I worked at City Hall at the time. And I had just got my first job. I had just graduated from my master's program, and I was working in City Hall. And I thought, I was doing good for myself, right? You think once you get a degree, especially if you could get upwards to your master's degree, you're thinking like, yo, I'm set. I'm going to be good. Now that I've graduated, I'm going to be making the money that I need, and I'm going to be living great. And in all actuality, it was okay, but it wasn't getting me out of the hamster wheel, right? I needed something more, and I didn't really understand what that was until I started going online and looking on YouTube to find videos and content like I'm providing for you right now, which was to how to build generational wealth, how to build passive income, right? So I did that, and in turn, I started learning, and people were telling me, like, for what you pay for in rent, you could own a property. So I started going online, YouTube, started looking up how to purchase a house. And I started discovering that not only can I purchase a house, but I could purchase a house, and the house that I purchased, I can actually rent that out and generate some income. At minimum, it could pay for the house itself. At maximum, it could start giving me some extra income that I can use to reinvest and or to live off of or to do other things, right? So I started the process. I went to my first NACA workshop. I will never forget. It was on Dope Street on the east side of Buffalo, at a church, small church. It was very cold. And I remember going there and just hearing about the NACA program and learning about what the benefits were. And mind you, I'm coming from the Bronx, New York City, born and raised. I never really knew anything about owning a house. None of my family at the time or immediate family ever owned a property. I had a grandparents that owned property, but they lived down south. I wasn't raised, in those houses to know what that process even looked like. No one even talked to me about that. So I was very much far removed from what that could be. And I thought that there was such a big distance from me to be able to purchase a property. But NACA really helped identify that there's a process and you got to follow the process. And by way of you following the process, you can achieve home ownership. Now, there's caveats to that, right? Because not everybody that attends the NACA workshops gets through, right? And there's a whole plethora of reasons as to why that's the case. So for me, I happen to be very fortunate. I gained a good relationship with the manager of the Buffalo office at the time, and the loan officer at the time, who had just came in, Michael Gampa. Shout out to my bro, Michael Gampa. He had just started, and I mean, he was a beast already, right? He was well-versed, he was really knowledgeable, and he was about making sure that anybody he worked with, he was trying to make sure that they got to the finish line and closed on their property, because that's how loan originators make their money, right? That's a little secret for y'all. They make their money mostly on the commissions that they get when they close on the properties. All of them are getting paid minimum wage hourly. So they're working tremendous hours to stack up that money, but they really make their bread when they close on the loans. So it's very few in between when you're going to hear or see a loan officer that's really not going to try to make the effort to close on the property for you. They're going to do everything within their power to help you close, because that's how they're going to eat and make their most money. All right. So I went through the process. This was 2015, February. I had about my initial appointment in March, a month after. I had to get in my documents. So at the time, I was a W-2 employee, so I had to provide 2 years of my W-2s. I provided 3 months of my bank statements. I was paying rent already, So I had to provide the rent statements. I provided all my demographic information, your atypical phone number, name, address, email. I also created a Google Drive. And by way of me creating a Google Drive, I was able to upload my documents and have them readily available at any given time. And that's a big major key. You want to be able to make sure that you have your documents available. So that way, if anytime a loan officer or underwriter is saying, hey, we need these documents as soon as possible, you want to be able to get that information and send it to them right away, right? You don't want to hold up your process. Another kept secret is that NACA volume is crazy, okay? And I know these things because I used to work at NACA, right? But prior to me working at NACA, I was just a regular buyer going through the process, and I didn't know. But I did know that anything that I could do to help the staff to get me to closing was what I needed to do, right? So I was 25 years old. I went into my first workshop. I went to the presentation. I provided all of my documents. I gave them my landlord, gave them my address. Everything was looking good. They pulled my credit, and then I found some blemishes, right? So I had to do a letter of explanation for my names. I had different variations of my name. Sometimes they had my middle initial. Sometimes they had my surname. Sometimes they had my full name. Sometimes they just had my first and my last name. So you had to provide a letter explanation for that. I had to provide a letter explanation for my addresses. I had multiple addresses in which I lived back home in the Bronx, and then addresses from when I lived in Buffalo. So I had to provide a letter explanation for that. I also had to provide a letter explanation for the inquiries. At the time, I was looking for some credit cards to pay some bills and to build up my credit. I had to provide a letter explanation for that. So with the name, with the address, with the inquiries, I had to provide those. Also, if you ever had any types of lates on your credit cards, you had to provide a letter explanation for that. So at the time, I think I had about maybe 2 lates, and I had to provide a letter explanation for those 2 lates. Now that was the max that you could have, was 2 lates. Couldn't have any more than 2 lates. So I was able to provide that. All in all, at the end of that first appointment, everything was looking good. He printed out a document that gave me my steps, and it said, listen, you need to make sure that you have your minimum required funds, which are MRF, they call it, right? And a payment shock, because I was renting. And at the time I was roommating with some of my fraternity brothers. They wanted me to make sure that I had enough money to cover the difference of what I was willing to pay and able to pay for the new mortgage, right? Because I was splitting the rent with my fraternity brothers. So I had to provide 3 months of that. Now, if I was living with family, I would have to provide 6 months of that payment shock savings pattern. So I was like, okay. The minimum required funds was what really hurt me the most, because at the time they wanted about $4,200. And, you know, I'm a young, fresh out of college student, saving up my money. At the time I was only making $42K for the year, paying student loans, just got a new car because I needed a car to be up here, to get to my job, to make the money that I needed to make. So it was a transition. It was definitely something that I needed to start saving up for and stacking up. The payment shock savings pattern actually kind of helped, because by way of me being forced to save that difference in what I was paying for in rent and what I want to pay for in the mortgage, that helped me start that savings pattern and start building that up. So as I started doing that, I was able to start building those reserves up. It took me about from March to about a full year of March to really get that $44,200 up. And by way of me stacking that money up, I took my tax return. I used that. You know, it's progress. Sometimes, you know, you take 2 steps forward to take 1 step back. But I figured it out, stuck to a strict budget, got my stuff together, and I was able to get approved. I was able to get qualified, right? So I provided all my documentation, photo ID, the letter of explanations. The credit was good at the time. And really with NACA, they don't care about your credit, right? But let's be clear here. It's not that they don't care about your credit score. They care about your payment history and your utilization. So by way of me really being strict and saving my money, I was also paying down debt. And by way of me paying down debt, that actually started to increase my pity. And what is your pity? Your pity is your principal, interest, taxes, and homeowner's insurance. That's your mortgage, excluding your utilities, right? Gas, electric, and your garbage and your water. Those are other things that you will be paying for as a homeowner. But when they're qualifying you for a mortgage, that's what they're specifically discussing and talking about is your PITI, your P-I-T-I. So I was able to get approved. I was able to make that happen. I was great. And I had an excellent counselor, mortgage counselor. Michael Gampa, still amazing, still there today, and still really rocking it and clearing out many loans, and taught me a lot when I eventually became a loan officer. But we'll discuss that in our next video, right? So I got pre-approved. I was happy, so elated, ready to go shopping. It took me a year, but I got my stuff together. I was 25 years old. I had just now turned 26, and I was ready to go and build generational wealth through real estate. In that time, I went through the second workshop. You had to go to the workshop. At the time, they had it at their office. I went to the office, and they were discussing about what that process is now when you go from starting off in the process to get pre-qualified, from pre-qualified to now closing. So I did that workshop, learned a lot, and I was blessed enough to get connected with a great real estate agent. And that real estate agent happened to be Hope Young Watkins. And she was doing amazing work in the city of Buffalo, especially with NACA. She was the NACA go-to when it came to a real estate agent. Nobody at the time, and I'm sure there's people out there, NACA is a very strenuous and strict program, very much so neck and neck, tear and tear with Section 8 and FHA. The house has to be pretty pristine and cleared, right, for you to purchase this property. So you need to have representation from somebody that actually knows what it looks like to close on NACA loans. And not just one NACA loan, but multiple NACA loans, because there's always different nuances and situations and things that can present itself, and you just want to make sure you have the right representation, right? That's going to not only sell the product, sell the program, but also sell you, right? Because you're the buyer, and the sellers and the sellers agents are looking at you. Are you reliable, right? Are you credible? And for me to be young, let's be honest, it wasn't the easiest, right? And to be young and black and to be purchasing in one of the most prominent neighborhoods here in the city of Buffalo, that was a challenge, not even gonna lie. But I was able to get through, and through the help of my counselor, through the help of my agent. And a good thing was that my agent, Hope, she knew who I needed to connect with to get my inspection. And she had a property inspector named Sam. Shout out to you, Sam. Appreciate you, brother. Who was able to conduct the inspection, detail everything fully the way that NACA had wanted it to be done, and in turn also be able to make a recommendation to help me to close on a loan. So with NACA will also provide funds to help you with your rehab process. Now the funds with the rehab process typically is similar to like a 203K loan, where you're able to buy the property, and with the purchase you're also able to roll in some monies to help you repair it, like windows, doors, floors, some kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, etc. Like NACA was very big on, you can pretty much rehab the property as long as everything that you're asking for to get rehab is affixed to the property. So let's just say hypothetically you turn the property upside down and you try to shake it out. As long as those things still stand with the property, you can purchase it and you can make it happen. And I was grateful and able to do that. I had went and updated the windows. I updated the kitchen. I did the electrical. I had updated the electrical boxes downstairs. You know, I'd spent on washers and dryers for the tenants as well to utilize, because we didn't have any at the time. Those were going to be gone with the sale. So I did a good extensive amount of rehab work for the property, for the whole building, essentially, with all of those fixtures and amenities to help bring the property value up as well, right? And it was all rolled in with the NACA loan. Now, the big issue that we had when it came to the inspection was that the property, unfortunately, in the city of Buffalo, this is a very old housing stock, and the properties tend to have a lot of asbestos. But don't be alarmed, right? Because asbestos, as long as it's, from what I've learned, intact and non-friable. What does that mean? Non-friable, where it's not exposed, where you can see the pieces looking like almost like torn pieces of paper or cotton or look like flaky. When it's flaky, when it's like that, that means it's friable. That means that it's exposed and that is in the air, and that can cause cancer and other health complications. And you don't want that, right? Another thing is with lead too, right? So many of these houses, because they were built in the early 1900s and way before the 1970s when they did the new lead law, right? Those houses had lead paint in it. But again, as long as the lead paint wasn't chipping, it wasn't friable, wasn't exposed in that sense, then it would be okay. You would just need to have it encapsulated. And a lot of people do riders for that to explain to people in cities like Cleveland, Northeast, Detroit, Chicago, New York, New Jersey, so many other places around the country, especially in that have been properties that were built prior to the 1970s, 1950s, have a lot of those materials that are in those properties. So we had asbestos wrapping that was on the pipes for the radiators that was in the basement, right? It was about 100 linear square feet. So because of that, we just had to prove that it was non-friable and it was encapsulated. And they were non-friable, wasn't torn, it wasn't exposed, it wasn't friable at that point. So we had to get an asbestos tested. So you also have to go, once that is identified, to get an environmental survey. And we were able to get one conducted at the time by environmentalists, and they came out and they did the work. And it passed. Everything was fine. It was asbestos that was identified, but it was non-friable, right? So we was able to keep moving forward on the purchase of the property. Another thing that was an issue was that we had a backyard garage that was in the back. That backyard garage was toe up from the flow up. For real. So there was no way that was going to be salvageable. There was no way in which we were going to be able to even utilize that. So we had to address that with the seller, and the seller agreed upon the sale that he was going to have that removed. And he did. And he had that removed and tore down. So we was able to make the purchase go through. We was able to get it, buy the house, one of the best houses in one of the best neighborhoods in the city of Buffalo, equivalent of a Central Park or Midtown Manhattan, may have you. And it was a 3-unit, right? So the beauty was that I was in position, and I knew when I spoke to my counselor to get pre-qualified that I wanted to get a multi-unit. Now, they wanted me to have 6 months reserves, and I was able to provide that and show that I was able to save up those monies, as well as the rental income that was coming in for the property helped me qualify, right? So they count for 75% of the rental income that's coming in. That is going to be used as a calculation to add to your pity. So whatever your pity is, let's say it was $600, the $600 was able to be added to the additional monies that was coming in from the rental units, right? At 75%. So with those 2 units combined with the money that I got approved for, that allowed me to purchase this property in this neighborhood with this high of a quality, right? And this high of a loan. Now, with all of those things being said, keys that I had working with me, right, was I had a great counselor, right? A great mortgage counselor, right? Michael Gampa. I had a great real estate agent, Hope Young Watkins, right? Who knew the work and knew the workarounds and how to sell the product, right? And was very confident and focused on making sure that we found something that fit the NACA guidelines and it fit my needs, right? As a new homeowner, new landlord in a great neighborhood at that too, right? In addition, I had a great inspector, Sam. Sam was a great inspector that really helped me out. He got me in a position where we was able to inspect the property and we was able to make sure we conveyed to the hand department, which is in San Antonio, Texas, that has a much more newer housing stock and doesn't deal with asbestos and lead, and they don't understand what asbestos and lead look like, right? But they were straight, and they're always looking out for the benefit of the homeowner. At the same time, you just got to make it clear. And to have a good team allowed me to clarify things and put it in perspective for them so that way I can purchase the property and that it all fit. So I say, to sum it up, you as the buyer have to have the willingness, the drive, and the faith in yourself to make it happen. Now, it was not easy. I told you that was about a year process just for me to get pre-qualified, and then it took me an additional about 6 months to close, and I closed in August 10th of 2016. And even the closing process took up some time, right? The contract had put for 60 days. It took maybe an additional 30 days because of the back and forth with the hand department and things that were going on. But again, it wasn't a lack thereof of effort. It was just by way of the communication and how the process was going, but it was still able to close. And at that time, the property I had purchased was at a purchase value of $300,000. I added $35,000 with all the repairs that I had mentioned into that loan. It was a 2.675 fixed interest rate. Again, 2.675 fixed interest rate for 30 years, right? Now, my property is worth $550,000 on the market. And that was in a matter of going on 9 years now. Okay. So, and in addition, because I purchased it as a multi-unit, I now became a landlord. So I'm not a certified accountant. However, since I've been a property owner, I've been able to write deductions off, whether it's been me buying light bulbs, mopping floor cleaner, cleaner and supplies for the laundry downstairs, the bills that I pay for the shared utilities in the hallway, even down to the mortgage, right? And the mortgage interest and the utility bills and all the other servicing bills that I pay for the property. All of that, you get to put that as a deduction and always check with a certified accountant on that. But those are the beauties and the tax benefits and advantages that you get when you become a landlord and a homeowner at the same time. Now, had I went and purchased a single family, and shout out to all of those that do, I have worked with them as well. That's great. Always a benefit, right? To own where you live. I'd rather own when you live than rent. However, if you can, and especially since at the time I had no children, I was just dating with my now wife, at the time girlfriend, and we were figuring out and seeing how serious we were with each other. And that was a big step, right? Because she moved in with me in this apartment. It really showed me the testament of putting in the work and planting those seeds and building that generational wealth, right? Because at the end of the day, as I alluded to earlier in the video, yes, I graduated with my master's degree. However, I can't pass my master's degree down to my kids. I could pass down this house though. And to me, that is more important than having an individual success or individual certification, because that's building generational wealth. Now, by way of me graduating does help me and build the relationships and allowed me to do the work that I'm doing and etc. And now become gradually a real estate developer and combining all of that. Sure. But it was always started with the fundamental premises of homeownership, because you can pass those deeds down and they can carry that. And now they have a rental income of property, whether they want to live in the property or they want to rent it out. They now have the ability to do so because we own it, right? And that's what's changed my life. It's changed my family's life. And I know it's going to change the next generations that haven't even come here yet, because that is a guarantee, right? So there's things in which you want to do and also want to protect that and have a trust, etc. But those are things that we can discuss in another video. But to sum it all up in this video, just wanted to give you the context to let you know that you can achieve generational wealth. NACA was a great program. You definitely need to read your book. You definitely need to upload your documents at all times. You need to be consistent and on your process. Again, at the end of the day, this is your process, not your mortgage counselor, not your real estate agent, not your inspector, not your attorneys, no one else, not your moms, not your pops, not your brother, not your sister, not your girlfriend, not your boyfriend, your partner, whoever, not even your animals, your dogs, whatever, right? At the end of the day, this is your process. So the work and the effort that you put into it is the work and the effort that you're going to get back in the reward. And if you're not satisfied, there's always a bunch of other people that are out there that can help you. There's counselors that are online that you can reach out to. There's agents online, and I suggest you reach out to. You could go through the NARAB list. You can go through the NACA has their own agents as well. But you just want to make sure that you got somebody that for sure that's fighting in your corner to help you gain ownership and build generational wealth, whatever that may be, single family or multifamily. So again, I leave you with that. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like the content that we're giving you. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please put it in the comment box below. And stay tuned. We're going to drop some more content for you to follow through on building generational wealth. Have a good one. Peace.